COVID Comms, an organization of communicators designed and set up to try and help with communication during COVID-19. Chris, I mean, good afternoon to you. I know you've been watching this very closely. We have a minister who broke all the rules for a friend. We have a deputy director general who made, as the report says, numerous material, intentional misrepresentations to the National Treasury. I don't think this could get any worse. Seems we have lost Chris Vick there, unfortunately. We'll put that question to him in just a moment. But a huge amount of reaction coming through to this because, as you can imagine, the way people have been feeling around the digital vibe scandal, the information that's come out through the SIU report, and I suspect that this won't be the last development. Chris Vick, you're back with us now from COVID Comms. I was making the point we had a minister who broke the rules for his friend. We have a deputy director general who made numerous material, intentional misrepresentations to the National Treasury. I don't know how this could get any worse.
Well, let's not forget the people at Digital Vibes. I mean, ultimately, they're the crooks. It takes two to tango. Yes, it was facilitated seemingly by the minister. There were a number of public servants who rigged the tender, rigged the bid, and didn't scrutinize the invoices. But I think the people with questions to really answer are the team at Digital Vibes, who were putting through massive invoices without doing any work. They were laundering money through cash and carry supermarkets. They were buying properties, going on shopping trips to Turkey. I think we need as much focus on them as we do on the people who enabled and facilitated this industrial scale corruption.
I mean, what we need really is criminal charges placed against them. That's what we need.
Definitely. And I think that's where, to look at the minister and the public servants who are involved, I don't think stepping down from cabinet in the case of the minister or a reprimand or disciplinary action against the public servants is sufficient. There's got to be criminal action. It has to send a signal to other public servants that you cannot get away with this sort of thing and get a rap on the knuckles or be suspended for 2 years before your employment is terminated. It sends a very, very bad signal that people were able to take this amount of money out of the state, and it was enabled by public servants. And at the same time, that people were able to put through invoices for example, 2.5 million rand a month as a retainer and deliver next to nothing, probably nothing. I mean, we've been tracking this thing since the very beginning. It's very difficult to find any evidence that Digital Vibes actually did any work. And I guess that's why there was so much money to spend on shopping trips and buying friends' houses and that sort of thing, because none of the money went towards public information in the middle of a pandemic where people needed that information to stay alive.
Well, I mean, this takes us to the next question. I mean, what impact did that have on government's communication? Did government get the communication it needed during the pandemic? The answer is obviously no. And other people in government, GCIS, could have done the job.
Definitely. I mean, I think government has definitely caught up. I think in the last few months, there are more visible signs of government communication. But the messaging in the beginning, when the lockdown was first announced, at a time when we all needed to know exactly what COVID-19 was about, how to avoid it spreading, the importance of the measures that were put in place, that was only being communicated by the president and in some very badly organized ministerial briefings. There was no direct communication with the people of South Africa for months. A couple of briefings that former Minister Mkhize did, 2-3 hour PowerPoint presentations, which didn't really help people understand the pandemic. That, in a sense, is the biggest failure of this entire project, is that in the crucial first months of the pandemic, there was no messaging coming from government. And I think what it did, and we've spoken about this before, is it created a huge trust deficit where people were starting to wonder what was going on, why there was nothing coming out of government. And that trust deficit to some extent exists today. Every time there's mention of Digital Vibes, people are like, oh, okay, can I trust government? Can I trust the communication? Is someone getting a backhander on the communication work that's being done now? So the ramifications and the ripple waves of Digital Vibes are going to be with us for a long time.
It's also difficult to recover from. I mean, there are political implications that we all know around this. I mean, what could happen in the ANC, the sort of departure, perhaps from public life, from politics of Dr. William Mkhize. But there's also a story about recovery, how you recover as government from this. I mean, that's both a political story and a communications story. One follows the other, or they both go together.
They do. I mean, there's also the health story, and I think the reason one of the reasons why the vaccine program has been fairly slow to take off is because of the consequences of the Digital Vibes initiative. I think there's a cynicism that's developed. I think there are questions around government's credibility and its legitimacy to speak on these issues. And that is really unfortunate. I think the political consequences for the ANC are significant. The fact that the president sat on this report for more than 2 months, it took me 20 minutes to read this morning. It's not that elaborate a document. And it's pretty clear what action needs to be taken. So there's been mismanagement, which I think has been damaging to the governing party and to government itself. From a communications point of view, as I said, we've lost a lot of time, a lot of crucial time, and people are starting to play catch up now. But it was the worst thing that could be done at the beginning of a pandemic. Let's not forget the PPE scandal, where people didn't hesitate to see an opportunity to steal when the pandemic arrived. And then on top of that, the Digital Vibe scandal, where huge amounts of money that should and could have been used for communication, whether by governments or other people, was just sucked out of the system and spent on holidays, shopping trips, cash and carry supermarkets so that cash could be given to other people. It really is a fundamental attack, I think, on the integrity of government and the integrity of the ANC and its ability to deal with problematic situations. I mean, former Minister Mkhize has a support base. The ANC is very, very concerned about factionalism and the impact of taking firm action, but it's got to weigh those up against the interests of the country and the feelings of society and the attitudes of people towards the governing party in terms of the president's public commitments to dealing with corruption.
Chris Vick, thanks very much indeed. Again, I think many people just shaking their heads over the timing of it all, that this happened at the start of a pandemic. Chris Vick from COVID Comms, really do appreciate the time.